Alexa, start the podcast. Okay. Welcome to the 359 podcast. It's episode 308 on Tuesday, October 31st. Happy Halloween. Your hosts today are Roger Cheng and Iyaz Akhtar.
Thanks a lot, Giant.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Alexa.
Giant Dot, it's good to see you.
Seriously, yeah. I was just gonna apologize for not having costumes, and then he sprung that on at the last minute, which is kind of amazing.
You don't appreciate my ability to commit?
No, I totally appreciate it. Thankful because both of us got lame and didn't have any costumes ready.
I do realize in retrospect, I just kind of look like the Black Knight from...
Yeah, I was thinking that before I saw
Monty
the Amazon
Python.
logo. I thought you were going as the Black Knight.
Yeah, probably should have.
That's fine.
My joke earlier was if there was like a little scratching on it, it could be a refurb, and you say "tis a scratch." Like it would be fine.
For a second I was worried Brian was gonna do the whole show in that talking that Alexa voice, and the show would last 3 hours.
Listen, I'm just trying to bring a little fun
Like,
today.
Can you do something
I
about this?
appreciate
I'm
it.
sorry, I can't.
I'm sorry.
Constant.
Our
I'm sorry.
next question is like.
Bing!
Well, she's not that robotic, but yeah, I'm
It's
sorry.
a little
I can't-
robotic.
I can't help you with that.
Right.
All right, so what are we talking about today?
We're talking about heavy stuff. I know the iPhone 10 reviews are out. We don't have Scott. I promise we will have Scott on to actually talk about it and bring the iPhone 10.
Way to build me up there. You're like,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
But
we don't have
instead,
Scott.
we've got... No. We're talking about some heavier stuff. Some really important topics. Facebook, Google, and Twitter are going to the first of 3 congressional hearings to talk about Russia's influence on the U.S. elections. And we'll also be talking about Apple, Qualcomm, and the latest in their legal fight. That's why I have Iyaz on, our legal expert, retired attorney,
That's correct.
Iyaz Akhtar, on to answer the questions, answer your questions about like whether or not what's the end game.
Well,
for all
within
this.
reason, I can't.
No, he's gonna answer all of your questions.
Any questions you have about
Anything
life,
about
about
law,
law, love, go
right.
ahead.
You
Ask
need
me.
to set up a will.
It doesn't-
just whatever you want.
No,
dude.
none of that's going to be usable.
Come on.
All right. As always, leave the comment. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. Brian will pick out the best, and we will get to them in 3 minutes and 59 seconds.
See ya in a few minutes back in the chat from 3, 2...
Welcome to the 359. I'm Roger Cheng, and with me is retired attorney Iyaz Akhtar, retired attorney and current CNET superstar. I need to add that. Iyaz Akhtar. Hi, Iyaz.
Hello, Roger.
So, Facebook, Google, and Twitter face Congress today. It's the first of 3 congressional hearings looking into how Russia used these social networks to influence the U.S. election. Some of these stats are startling. Facebook says 126 million Americans, or a third of our population, was exposed to Russian-backed accounts. Twitter says there are 2,700 accounts that are believed to be associated with the Internet Research Agency, which is Russia's click farm or troll farm. And Google said that the IRA had spent $4,700 on ads, and there are 18 YouTube channels associated with the group. All this begs the question, do you think these companies are too powerful?
I don't know if they're too powerful so much as the way people interact with them might be the bigger issue. Because I know when it comes to Facebook sharing, a lot of people don't click through; they just share immediately.
Yeah, there's no vetting at all.
Right. So I mean, the normal person is just seeing the headline and they're just moving on. They're not noticing what they're actually reading. Same thing with tweets. It's very quick to spread information or misinformation. So I don't know if the companies themselves are too powerful, but it does say that they need to do something about it because of how people are using their tools, so to speak.
Right. I think the question that hopefully we'll get an answer after the next couple of days is, like, do we need regulation? Clearly, Congress and the Congress is looking at regulations. I think these companies are saying, we hear you, but we think we can totally regulate ourselves and everything will be okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is arguably the Wild West because this is uncharted territory. How these places can influence an election, that's a very serious event. So there's a question, did it influence the event? What's the actual impact on it? Because just because you saw something, did it influence you or not? Right. And that's a really bigger question. So will that lead to regulations? I could see these companies with their lobbying efforts to make sure, yeah, we'll regulate ourselves for now until something needs to be done. But this might be the event that says something needs to be done.
Right. I mean, it definitely takes something dramatic, and obviously the U.S. elections, it doesn't get as dramatic as that, right?
Kind of important.
So next up, we want to talk about Apple reportedly looking to ditch Qualcomm as a supplier of cellular radios. This is the latest in their big legal spat in which they have disagreements over how much Apple should be paying Qualcomm for both the technology and for the radio in the iPhone. So, Iyaz, is this just legal posturing? Is it just they're just making a bluff here?
Yeah, I mean, when we see a lot of these legal battles in the past, Apple and Samsung famously go at it all the time, but Samsung screens are on the iPhone 10.
Yep.
And they have a working relationship. Same thing with Qualcomm, with Apple trying to have all this stuff in the public. Likely they're trying to get a better deal, maybe a better settlement. And by the end of this, we'll probably see that beautiful phrase, cross-patent licensing agreement.
Oh, yeah.
They'll figure their stuff out together. It'll be all private, and we won't know any of the details.
Right. It's just it's interesting, just entertaining the idea of ditching Qualcomm because it's the largest supplier of mobile chips and radios. The only other two that I'm aware that could do this are Intel and MediaTek.
Yes, those are the other
and Intel is in some of the iPhones, the new iPhones. I believe it's T-Mobile and AT&T iPhones.
The modems themselves.
The modems themselves, yes.
It's a very limited field. Also, Apple has its own manufacturing facilities when it comes to chips. So I don't know if they can pivot and make modems or not, but this is a very difficult field to be in.
Right. You can't just decide one day I'm going to start making chips or I'm going to start making radios because there is a lot of setup time and the process to make these things is rather complicated and it's unclear whether Intel and MediaTek could actually provide the volumes that Apple really demands.
Yeah,
Right?
it's a really tough thing because iPhones are.
I mean,
very
I
hot.
tend to agree. I think this is more legal posturing. This is definitely more Apple saying, we don't need you. We can go on without you.
They're
Just
Taylor Swifting right now.
exactly. So, trying to get everyone back to the bargaining table to actually talk it out. All right, that's all this time we have for these stories and more. Check us out on CNET. I'm Roger Cheng.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
Thanks for listening.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump into the chat, find and dig out some good questions and comments for everybody. Until then, we did kind of miss a story that we were trying to line up today.
The iPhone 10?
We ran out of time to talk about.
the
Roadshow.
Roadshow?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were trying to we were trying to tease the ride that Tim Stevens had on one of the Waymo self-driving cars. It's one of Google's self-driving cars. Just kind of ran out of time, but
That'll happen.
that'll happen.
I have to look into that myself
We
because
had some really, we had a lot of complicated stories to discuss, so it was tough. But I wanted to give some shout out, some love to Roadshow and the Waymo story, which is on the front page of CNET right now.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, Iyaz, educate us a little more in the legal proceedings that we might see over the next couple of days or
With Apple and
forever.
Qualcomm?
Or which one?
I'm kind of curious as to what's going to go down with the social media fallout. I don't know how far we can dig into this before we get into danger territory, but it is going to be...
I don't think there's anything legal. There's just going to be a lot of back and forth. There are going to be a lot of questions.
And a lot of quiet tech people saying like, okay, we've made that statement.
Yeah.
We can't tell you more. I would imagine a lot of, what's the word? Just getting stopped from getting actual answers. Kind of like when we saw, what was that CEO? Experian? Was that the guy?
Oh, yeah, the Experience CEO.
Not Experian.
Oh, no,
Equifax.
Equifax.
Experian's different thing. Equifax, and he's basically.
Do you think the Monopoly guy will show up here?
I think there's a chance.
I
It's
hope
also
so.
Halloween, so
Yeah,
there could
actually,
be a lot.
kind of, yeah.
But yeah, I would think that we're going to get not a lot of information out of these experts, and we're going to find basically their prepared statements is all that they will say because
Yeah.
that is the safest thing to say over and over again.
Which is frustrating because it's going to be, these are like 2-hour-long sessions, and
Mm-hmm.
they're just a row of senators and representatives all asking questions that we want answers to.
Yeah.
And there's just going to be like, we'll have to defer to the statement for that.
Well, yeah,
the testimony.
The
or prepared
idea is
testimony.
people want to see something like a court drama where like
And
somebody asks a
it's
question
never
like,
that interesting.
okay, I admit it,
Yeah.
I did it.
You can't handle the truth. There's
that,
no
that doesn't happen.
there's no Jack Nicholson moment.
doesn't.
We all want one.
If
though.
it does happen in the next 2 days, we'll
that
be
would
all
be
over it.
amazing.
We're like
And that person would lose their job.
chief
pretty
legal
much.
counsel loses their stuff at hearing. It'd be viral, and that would be the new distraction because we wouldn't even pay attention to
You're
the
right.
content.
We wouldn't even talk about Russian anymore. We're just talking about this idiot that's
Like, I can't believe that dude flipped the table.
yep.
All right, let's go ahead and take a question
do it.
from the chat. And first up, we got James Vincent. A comment regarding our headline is Google, Facebook, Twitter too powerful. No, I don't think they are too powerful. There's just no one else to knock them off their top spots. How do you respond to that?
I mean, doesn't that mean they're by definition too powerful? Like it's almost kind of it's monopolistic, right? It's the fact that there is no other Facebook alternative.
Okay, wait a second. So if you look at Google's findings when they're talking about the 18 YouTube channels and the $4,700, they actually have a line about Google Plus, and they're like, we found no Google Plus posts related to this. So I'm 99% sure that's what it said. You can double check me on that. I have a link somewhere.
I mean, yes.
So there are alternatives, but Google tried to be
Right.
an alternative to Facebook, and that didn't really work.
I mean, you could argue that as a source of news, they're competitors, right? Google is a good source of. I mean, it's not good. I mean, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying it's a very popular source of news, just like Facebook news feeds have become a popular source of news. And in that respect, they do kind of compete with each other. But I think it's still kind of the same problem, right?
Yeah.
But they're not meant to be news organizations. If you want to go to the
Right.
news organizations,
There's no exercising judgment. But my point is people go to those sites.
That's becoming
for
a
news.
problem.
Right. That's where the problem lies. There is no, and I know Facebook is throwing people at this problem, but there is no sort of editorial control over it, right?
Right, and there's no way to say this that doesn't come off as arrogant to some extent as we sit here in our paid seats to be in a news.
My seat's not paid. I think this is free.
You get what I'm trying to say, though, and
Yeah.
it's we've got things like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter that gives everyone a platform to be their own news agency.
Sure.
Everyone's got a voice now, and how do you vet that to an extent? Because you don't want to take away anyone's power of opinion, but how do you credit? I don't know what I'm
Facebook's
trying to
credit,
say.
they have tried to stop fake news. They've partnered with like Scopes, PolitiFact.
Yep.
They've partnered with companies or outside organizations to vet some of the stories. The problem is there's just so much out there that these organizations can't get to everything. It takes days sometimes.
Well, on that note, are we too deep? Is there any coming back?
I think this is a pivot point because, like, if you think about it, I guess in the old days, if you had anybody could print out anything and like, okay, this is the news that's being spread out, or you could go to the town square and there's like a lunatic talking.
Extra.
You can have all of this stuff, but right now we're in this weird position where Facebook, we've seen a lot of social networks come and go. Facebook's managed to stick around internet time a long time, and it seems like they have a lot of users, and that's not going to go away anytime soon. And we're learning we can't just trust everything we see because just because it looks like it's official, it might not be. And seeing Facebook's like increased ad transparency statement the other day where they're going to have clear labels on what's an advertisement. This is the kind of stuff that has to happen because I don't think, and this might sound naive, I don't know if a lot of this was foreseeable to go, oh, that's how this is going to work. Somebody's going to figure out we're going to throw a bunch of propaganda.
Well, I mean, to that point, Facebook was warned about this
By
early on by security companies, security experts, by even the government expressed concerns about it.
That's very
from what I understand, Facebook kind of looked into this before the elections, long before the elections, and just sort of said, we'll look into this, and nothing really happened.
So it was
And
foreseeable, and they should have done
some
something.
of it was foreseeable. I mean, if you're looking at it from the Facebook perspective, you're probably thinking, no, that's crazy, right? That was Zuckerberg's first reaction when everyone kept saying, this was your fault that Trump won the election and there was fake news that messed everything up. His first reaction was, no, that's crazy, like that idea. And then he has since
That was
backtracked.
very naive on his part.
Yes.
Yeah, but he's
He has
also like a
since backtracked.
bubble person. He's a totally different
He
kind of
is,
human.
but I mean, does stay kind of
Human?
Well, yeah, different kind. Like Musk. He's like, okay, you guys aren't really with us, right? You just.
But Musk is going to be on the front line to fight against the artificial intelligence war with the T-1000s.
Yeah, but he's also his own.
Mark Zuckerberg is a sleeper agent for them.
I don't know. About it.
All right, that's a little strong. We don't. That is not the opinion of CNET or its staff. Just BVG.
Just Alexa.
Just Alexa. Just fake Alexa.
Listen, Zuck seems like a really nice cyborg. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm okay with that. Just because he's still got some human left if he's a cyborg.
Yeah, I mean, this is essentially, we're on the cusp of iRobot, the questioning of who gets rights, and the first one to be questioned is Zuckerberg.
All right, what questions do we got?
Sorry, I got distracted for a minute.
Just a bit. Just a bit there.
Well, I mean, Josh Boyd brings up a good point, and this is just kind of expanding on what we were already talking about earlier and what we just went into detail most recently. But he says, I feel that Google and Facebook don't deserve all the blame for spreading this fake news because the issue comes from the people taking advantage of how the sites work. Yes, we know that from the algorithm exposure and just general... I don't even know what the phrase I'm trying to come up with. People don't take time to verify anything they see online, and that's definitely the case.
That is part of the.
We said before, I'm guilty of it.
That is part of the problem for sure. I think most people blame. I mean, ultimately, you blame Russia because that's where a lot of this misinformation is coming from. But some responsibility has to be put upon these companies. They can't just be this neutral bystander. Like, we're gonna put out all this stuff. It's up to you guys to figure out what's real. I mean, it's hard, especially when you're getting this. When you're being flooded with this information overload, it is hard to vet everything that comes through, right?
Exactly. And here is the elephant in the room, the devil's advocate question coming from Dan McLean, and I'm glad he brought this up, and we should address this. How well vetted is the established media?
Ooh, that's a good question.
It is a good question.
I would say,
Depends on your agency.
Yeah, it depends on. I guess it depends on which media outlet, but I can only speak for my time, writing both from CNET and at the Wall Street Journal. The folks there, there's a lot of training that goes into the job. There's a lot of process to make sure these stories are as objective as possible. Nothing is 100% objective, but I worked at organizations that at least had the intent to get things right, to get information out there that is useful to readers. And that's not always the case with a lot of the sources that are out there, right? There are either publications or there are organizations like the IRA, which they submit news and information whose sole purpose is to mislead you. And so, it's I don't know. I get tongue-tied when talking about the question of
It's
vetting
tough because where do you draw
media.
the line between media and objective reporting and business? Because they both play a major
Well, it depends.
hand in it.
If there's a line between editorial and business side of it, that's really what the thing is. Like I know ethics. I had to learn a lot about ethics in law school.
Yeah.
Go figure, right?
Yeah.
Everyone thinks that's a joke. It's not a joke.
No, it's not.
The moral and being actually ethically sound in what you're doing and what you're saying. I know that transfers to journalists as well.
Absolutely.
So if your editorial head is saying, look, we have to get this right. And also your name is on the byline. So you want to be right when
Yep.
you're reading these things.
Yep.
And that's why you stand by your piece. So maybe the Times doesn't have something as fast as some other site does, but odds are they're researching the hell out of this to make sure that
Yep.
they are going back to the original source. Because one of the things I've seen is the re-reporting of other stuff. Because if you go, okay, from this site to the next site to the next site, if you never go back to the original source,
Right.
you have just hearsay. You need that original source information before you move on to that stuff. So
And look, we at CNET we write and we re-report other stories, but we always check with the source. We always check with the original companies, with the original people that are the subjects of those stories, because we want to get it right. Right? It may not be up to us. The companies may not want to talk about certain things, but we're always trying to get things right.
like integrity
Exactly.
over views.
Yeah.
And I think kind of in a weird, ironic sense, there's a level of that business aspect to it that could seem like that's the corruptible end of objective reporting.
Yep.
But the motivation at hand is you have to be as correct as possible to not get called out on your credibility so that your platform can remain. The whole point of this is like, we like doing this. We didn't do this to get rich. This is
Right.
an
Definitely
interesting
not.
job. I've been in the media in some aspects since I was 14 years old. I worked for a newspaper, worked for a local radio station, pursued radio and broadcast and technical production as my career. Continued to work for local radio stations and other media outlets. Got involved in media law as like a personal interest throughout that. And ultimately, when you get down to it, at the end of the day, I'm not trying to oversimplify this, but it's writing one giant essay, and the bibliography, which is always everybody's least favorite part about doing it. That's really what has to come down into it, is citing your sources.
Yep.
And I think that's what kind of holds the glue together. There's that motivation where you're working with a team here. I'm not solo out of my basement like Alex Jones. We're working together to try to bring the most relevant information to an audience that would appreciate it, of course, first and foremost, but trying to stretch beyond that at the same time. And I'm not trying to get on the soapbox. I'm going to wrap this up soon. It's just something I've felt very passionate about, and the whole fake news thing bothers me to my core.
Yep.
And I don't know. I like what I do. I like what we do. I hope other people do at the same time. And I've completely gone off the rails and lost my train of thought here.
That's
You're on the rails.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a
Look,
duty, a moral
the
duty.
idea
to
of
this.
fake news does. It upsets me as well, as someone who's spent a career trying to get it right. And you don't always get it right. We're humans; we make mistakes, but
There are higher stakes though. When we
Yes.
work here, and it's our livelihood at the same time. Somebody can preach all they want on YouTube, and it costs them nothing.
Right.
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 We have overhead. We have goals to meet. We have stretch goals. We have an audience to appease.
Ultimately, we have a reputation that we have to uphold.
That's
right?
the big thing, is the
And
reputation.
That's the biggest thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions? before we wrap
Sorry,
things
no,
up?
I didn't mean to get so deep into that.
We got very soapboxy there for a second.
Yeah, sorry.
It's all right. It's all right.
Again, it's something that I've been really passionate about, and that's the biggest thing that bothers me about the current climate. Keeping politics out of it is just like fake news. I've had my own family members start preaching the fake news thing. It's like, you know what I do for a living, right? Well, you've known me for 31 years and how hard I've tried to be a good person. Like,
Right.
you know what
But
you're
then it'll
saying.
be like, oh, it's not you. It's all the other ones.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about all I got. So thanks everybody for entertaining
Yeah.
my gripe on what's supposed to be kind of a fun, silly, spooky day.
I know. We
That
chose
is spooky,
the
though.
heaviest topics to talk about.
That is frightening.
This is the most frightening
All
episode.
right.
This
Whoa, it's a frightening look, actually.
I can't do anything.
I know.
I don't know. You can't even hear.
You sound
me.
like an echo. I can't
Right?
do anything.
That's awesome.
I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
All right. I guess we should wrap it up there.
We probably should.
We got to run. We're going to have more on the congressional hearings tomorrow, as well as hopefully we'll have Scott on to talk about the iPhone 10. He's a busy man,
Yep.
so we'll see. But Iyaz, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Offering your legal expertise as a retired attorney
Retired attorney. That's me. That's true, by the way.
and,
All right,
and
bring
current
us-
CNET superstar.
Bring us home, Roger.
All right. If you liked anything you saw or heard here, check us out on CNET. Podcast is also available on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, FeedBurner, and Google Play Music. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.